With that, we will jump right in. Twitch, hello.
There we go.
There we go. And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 4, we will be taking a look back at opening week of the 2019 season, kind of discussing what has been going on in regards to player performances, let you know who to keep an eye out for in regards to trades and the waiver wire, and of course, we will do our weekly pickups for some other marquee matches. But before we can do that and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us live tonight on Twitch for our live show, and thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, it's not a full house yet because our co-host Blazing Bob is guesting on Around the Payload, hopefully winning, because I cannot be the only person on our network to win that game, but that's besides the point. But joining me tonight, we have my co-host up first, fresh off the heels of being at opening week, is Ramses. Ramses, how has the past weekend been, man?
As I'm sure Ed's going to pile on me in a little bit, it was sad, Toto. It was a sad weekend. But then again, if I'm being honest, that's every weekend being a Houston Outlaws fan. You go up, you go down, you watch drama start on Reddit, and then the next week happens. But it was pretty good. Fantasy did very well this weekend. I won both matchups. One with Vic, who's in our Owl Host League. One with some guy named Totem on our Foul Play League that I'm also in. Number 2 in the Unlimited rankings. So doing all right. Yourself?
It's been a busy weekend, obviously, with 9 hours worth of Overwatch League on every single day and podcasting. It's been great. Kind of a mixed bag in regards to Fantasy Overwatch League. Some players popped off more than others, but these first couple of weeks are always who's who of Fantasy Overwatch League. We're not always going to get the results that we expect. And in some cases, I know in one of the leagues I had, I was up like 700 points, and yet somehow it displayed as a loss. I don't know what happened there. Hopefully Soldring can figure it out for me. But of course, we also have my co-host of Heroes Never Die with us here tonight again, Edinar. Edinar, how's your week been outside of the gloriousness that was seeing the Houston Outlaws getting crushed and decimated in 2 consecutive Mat 5s?
I mean, I'm sorry, Houston Outlaws? I refer to them now as the Houston Dragons. That is their new name. They are the Houston Dragons. Yeah, win and prove me wrong.
Does 2 map 5s count as getting crushed? I don't know about
two
crushed.
2 map 5s against 2 bottom 10 teams is like kissing your sister date at prom. Like, crushed. I'm sorry. Like, crushed. If they would have, gone to game 5 against New York Excelsior or, even the LA Valiant, not Boston and Toronto. Nope. You don't get any credit for that. So sorry about that. But no, my week's been good. I went 2-1 in my 3 standard leagues. The one loss came from me and Bob's team.
Imagine that.
We got hit pretty hard. It's brutal. There's going to be a lot of changes needed to be done.
At least one of the host duos picked up a win in that league last week.
Right. But the other 2 leagues I crushed it in. I think I won by 150, and the other one I won by 300. So it was overall a pretty much a whooping. In my Unlimited leagues, I think I'm in 4 leagues in Unlimited, and I placed in the top 20 at least in all of them. So that's good. I mean, in the Hanzo Spark one, I think I placed top 5. So, because, I don't play homers, so I didn't be like, I'm going to play all Spark players. Ho hum. Yeah, you're going to do well in that league if you don't start all people from the same team. That's not named the Philadelphia Fusion. So it's been good. You're just I've been working the waiver wires, trying to work on some trades. They're in the works, behind the scenes. But yeah, that's
With
a
or
lot
without
of.
Bob's consent.
He will know about them
After they've already happened.
after they're happened. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying. I watched. I tweeted this out, but I have enjoyed watching the games 10 times more, rooting for your team and rooting for your players this past week than I did all of last season. You're watching every game, you're like, okay, I don't have anybody, they don't have anybody in this game. Okay, I'll take this, I'll go eat dinner during this game. And then you're like, but the next match, I got 2 people, they have 1 person. We need to figure this out. So it's been a lot of fun, and then a lot of surprises with players from a fantasy standpoint this week, which we will go over probably fairly in detail in a little while. So yeah, I've had a great week.
All right, well, let's quickly go over what went down in opening week as we do the rundown. So, Ramses, what exactly did we see in regards to the Overwatch League results in the opening week?
So, opening day, our opening match, the rematch for the grand finals from the last season was the Philadelphia Fusion defeating the London Spitfire 3-1, with the New York Excelsior defeating Boston Uprising with a surprising result 2-1. The Seoul Dynasty defeated the Los Angeles Gladiators 3-1, and the Hangzhou Spark, I'm going to stumble on that over for the whole season. The Hangzhou Spark defeating the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. Next on Friday, we had the Toronto Defiant defeating some team, and we had after that the Atlanta Reign defeating the Florida Mayhem. I'm waiting for the Grives. San Francisco Shock defeating the Dallas Fuel 4-0, and the Chengdu Hunters defeating the Guangzhou Charge 3-2. Saturday, we had the one Paris game this week, Paris Eternal defeating London Spitfire in the Battle for Europe 3-1. New York Excelsior defeating Washington Justice 3-1. Hangzhou third time. Hangzhou Spark
English is hard.
The anime team. Hangzhou Spark defeating the Los Angeles Valiant 3-2. And the Vancouver Titans stomping the Shanghai Dragons 4-0. And then Sunday, we had the Boston Uprising defeating the Houston Outlaws 3-2. I deserve it. I deserve it.
That's a good one.
The Philadelphia Fusion defeating the Atlanta Reign 3-2. The Los Angeles Gladiators defeating the San Francisco Shock 3-2. And the Dallas Fuel, in a very surprising result, defeating the Seoul Dynasty, 3-1.
They ruined my week. They also ruined the day
brutal.
because we had map 5 throughout the entirety of the day, and then AKM on Kings Row happened. I don't know what that was, but I was really happy to see that after all of the flack that AKM got throughout the entirety of Season 1, obviously being the AKM Blade meme that it was. But kind of looking back really quick, what games kind of took you guys back in regards to any of the results? Did any of those stand out more than some of the other defeats?
I'll go first. The Spitfire. The Spitfire losing 2 games is hands down the most surprising thing of the entire week. I know people had talked about it beforehand about the possibility of them losing 2 games this week, but no one truly believed it. I think the majority of people had them all as 2-0. So, I mean, that was surprising to me. Yeah, I don't think there's the Atlanta Reign also were a little surprising to me, especially coming not so much against the Florida Mayhem because Mayhem are not good. But I wasn't sold on the Reign after the Mayhem match, but after the Fusion match, where it's if not the best, second best match of the whole week. They sold me as a legit team. I don't know about stage 2 and beyond, but this current meta Atlanta Reign are legit.
I was really stoked because I mean, last year you had all these complaints about for Overwatch, which should be 04 Watch, by the way. I never understand why people flip it like that. But last year we had all these complaints about teams just getting annihilated and stomps. And looking at the results, we only had 3 4-0s out of 16 games this whole weekend. So a lot of actually really contested results. And even though the Outlaws had to suffer it, I'm very interested in the Toronto Defiant. I think there's a lot of talents on that team that are going to actually develop into something really, really important fantasy-wise. I mean, you saw Envy come out there and play with. I could feel his anger and his spite just coming out of the screen watching him play. So I think Toronto Defiant was a really interesting team to watch. And then also, I think this Chengdu Hunters versus Guangzhou Charge game was also really cool to watch. We got to see a lot of different strats and a lot more offensive heroes come out, which I think will directly impact their fantasy statistics, I guess, for people who are playing a lot more damage heroes. So I think it'll be interesting to watch a lot of these Chinese teams develop as well.
Yeah, I do quickly want to note that in the opening week, we did see a lot of flex tanks move into different roles. Like, we got to see Hotba bringing out the Tracer again. We got to see Meko playing a ton of Sombra, which was really interesting. So it's not quite what it appears to be. So, like, we even had is like for Kuki, where he wasn't even tanking. He was actually filling in as main support, playing Lucio for the LA Valiant in their 3-3, which I thought really not expected. And Kuki had kind of been one of those tanks that wasn't really drafted all that often. So it was a very interesting opening week. And in that, we actually got to see all heroes being played in the Overwatch League. So already out of the gate after opening the week, we are ahead of the game in regards to heroes played. We got to see Surefour beat Muma to the punch when it comes to playing Symmetra. we saw Defran come out on Torbjorn on as well for his debut. So what better way to kick off the Defran redemption arc than by him just straight up bringing out Torb? Like, it was just the perfect culmination of that story. So that was awesome to see. But with that being said, we are here to talk about Fantasy Overwatch League. And I know on High Noon, the waivers have basically already processed, but there were a lot of players out there that maybe we didn't have that much stock in that really put up, some serious numbers. So when we look back after the week 1 performances, who were some of the players that you were targeting or, kind of had an eye on in regards to adding to your rosters? So Ed, why don't you take this one away?
All right. Well, for starters, so we're talking here the waiver wire. Who's probably available for you in your leagues that weren't drafted? So I'll go by, for me at least, and we'll go around, but for me at least, I'll break it down between tank, support, offense. So there's 2 tank players that I wanted to say that are probably available if they weren't picked up or available after this past week that really stood out to me, and that is 1, Michelle. I put in for Michelle as a pickup in every single one of my leagues. Just because I think great. The other is Rhea. So, Poco Bombs are a thing of the past. Like, you hear it, you've heard it on every Overwatch podcast that's come out since, Sunday, that Poco Bombs are dead, Rhea Bombs live. So you have Michelle, who's off tank, who are the highest scoring tanks, who also, Michelle goes from Diva to Sombra, so he's not coming out of the game whatsoever. So he's probably one of the top 2 I'd go and pick up. Rhea is going to be a lot of hit or miss, kind of like Poco. Like, Poco is going to be consistent, but he could score you that massive week. He could underperform, but his average is going to be pretty high. So that is who I have for tanks. For support, I would say Aid from Toronto is one that a lot of people didn't have that really kind of came through this week. Now I know that they had a long match, a 5-game match with Houston, but he was still he still had a higher scoring game than any of Jonak's games. So Aid outscored Jonak. If you were playing on a best game of the week, like fantasy league, Aid was better than Jonak. Just keep that in mind. That will not be the case every week, but that is a support player that just wasn't picked. The other, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, Totem. Julian, you weren't here, but Shu from the Charge. Shu from the Charge really, really stepped it up. Really pumped out some high fantasy numbers. So those are two players. If you can go out and pick them, they are, if you're playing, best of scoring, not combined scoring, those are two supports that are, I'd say, mid-level number 2 supports. So they're not number ones, they're not high-end number 2s. They're just, if you're uncertain, if you're the team that drafted Kodak and you're screwed, like, go out, pick one of these two guys up, pump them in. And then for DPS players, I think the big one is Nene from New York Excelsior. No one knew what they were going to actually do in New York. And once they came out on Nene, and we saw Nene's Zarya, that was just like, you saw that and you're just like, yep, that is going to be real good. The other one, and this is kind of an obscure one that not a lot of people probably had, but Blase. Blase from Boston is, I'd say he's in our leagues. I've actually drafted him in 2 of our leagues, but I'm super high on Blase coming into this year, knowing him from contenders. But a lot of leagues, he wasn't going drafted. Blase, the way he wasn't being drafted because Boston Uprising were not highly thought of. And that kind of switched this week. And you saw Blase kind of step up. Now, I mean, he didn't light the world on fire, but like, he did better than Linkser. He did better than Libero. He did better than Fleta. Like, on a best of scoring, he did better than those DPS. So he's another DPS out there that I would definitely go out and pick up. So I don't know. We'll throw to Julian. Julian, give me some of the outlaws that we should take that we should immediately regret.
Well, I don't know how many leagues he's still around in, just because I know everyone was a little concerned with what the DPS rotation would be. But if Dante is available in your league, stop what you're doing and go get him right now. The guy was, let's see, he was number 10 in full rankings for just one game with 200.99 points. For full rankings for both games, the guy came out with 386.1 points, number 4 overall. So Dante, regardless of how his team did, Dante put out a ton of points. And so if he's still available, definitely get him. This is going to sound weird to say it, but a lot of people, with how many DPS we have in San Francisco, between Striker and Architect and Rascal, I know people were a little concerned as far as whether or not the original Shock players were going to get any value. But if Sinatra is available, get Sinatra as well. He seems to be their primary. My words tonight, I swear. He seems to be their primary Zarya player. Again, number 10th overall for combined scoring, and I don't have him for one. Oh yeah, so number 10 overall for combined scoring, number 21 for just one game, and then the other person that comes to mind here is Beji. It looks like it is Bazzi for the Hangzhou Spark. In the one game that he played all 4 in on, I think, day 2, he scored 197.34. So he definitely seems to be coming in and putting in a lot. He may not be necessarily a immediate start yet because we need to see how that DPS situation shakes out, especially with Crystal coming in. But he's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
I just wanted to say one thing about Dante. Yes, Dante, if he's available, he's an immediate pickup. 100% agree. But if you have him on your team, sell high.
Yes.
Trade him immediately. Trade him for whatever you can because his value is not going to be any higher than it is this week. And the reason, I mean, how often does someone get into 3-2 matches in the same week where you're pumping out those numbers? He will not repeat the week he had this week. Do not expect those numbers. Just don't. You can't expect the Houston Outlaws to go through 5 maps any of the next few weeks for both matches.
It was, because it was 5 maps with 99 to 99, 2 maps on control each. So they went to literally the furthest extent they could.
So, like, if you have Dante, sell super incredibly high on him and trade him. Like, trade him now because you were not drafting Dante as your starting DPS. You just weren't. So you have good DPS on your team besides Dante. Well, now you can trade Dante, package him with someone else, get one of those top supports, get one of those top tanks, get one of those top overall supports, trade for a Carpe, trade for a Fleta, like someone who in the long run is going to be better than Dante popping off in 1 week. So I just wanted to pop that out there before Totem gets into his numbers, and it's Bazzy.
But I think they put out a video or at least a tweet saying it was pronounced Beji. So I could be wrong. I had one more pickup Totem if I have a sec, which was Keo from the Cheng. Keo?
You are excelling. You are on point tonight.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with my words right now. But Kia from the Chengdu Hunters, the guy is a every game, all 4 maps starting flex support. So there's a lot of number potential in there. Again, maybe not an immediate start yet, but if you're playing in a league with raw scoring, he's definitely someone to at least pick up, put on your bench, and see how the Hunters continue to fare against teams that aren't the Guangzhou Charge, teams that have a little bit more competition in them.
Gonna mix up the Chinese teams too. Anyways, it's from hanging out with Bob too much over the weekend. That's probably what it is.
For sure.
For me, I know you guys already mentioned a couple that I picked. Tank line, Michelle was definitely the top pick to get. You could definitely make an argument for Axiom from Boston Uprising, who was playing pretty much every map for Boston. I know RCK put up some pretty decent numbers for the Fuel as well. Supports are an interesting one because I feel like for the most part, the flex supports are going to be gone across the board, but maybe Hagopen might be available just because he's on the Florida Mayhem, and they're not really highly touted right now. With in most of the power rankings, they're probably anywhere from 18th to 20th, somewhere in that area. Jexay from the Dynasty put up some pretty solid numbers for a main support, but you have to be cautious when it comes to main supports just because they are not putting up as many fantasy points in Fantasy Overwatch League. And then, Shu would have been my top choice this week, which you already brought up. And DPS varies quite a bit. Blase probably stood out the most out of all of the guys that really haven't been picked up that often. I know Zachary put up some pretty decent numbers as well, but for DPS, the fluctuation between points and who's actually being taken is kind of all over the place. So it's definitely a harder one to call on that role. But we did see, if it's a DPS playing Zarya, they're putting up good numbers. The DPS players that are on in Brigida Prison were kind of all over the place. So I'd be a little bit more cautious with some of the Brigida players out there based on what team they're on. But I know Happy was popping off with a charge, and that's definitely going to be one of the more late round picks if he was picked at all. So keep an eye on that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the players that maybe didn't have the best week and tell you whether or not you need to vouch for them or if they slouch. So this is buy or sell in this case. So let's go ahead and use a couple of different players that did not do so hot. So first up, let's talk about Janice from the Washington Justice. This is their main tank player who, yes, they did go up against New York Excelsior. And this one, he put up 24.91 points in the one game. Now, Justice kind of across the board has been one of these teams that we don't have a lot of stock value in, but a lot of people have been feeling good about Janus kind of going in, being the main tank, and really having an opportunity to prove himself. And of course, he is back behind the cushion of Wizard Hyun, who was also on NYXL. What did you guys think of the frontline presence of the Justice in opening week?
I don't know if you could even call it a frontline presence. I mean, from where I was watching it in their game day, it just looked like a slaughter after slaughter after slaughter. One win on Horizon that we were all mystified by, and then just slaughter and slaughter. At this point, with we're looking at how many points? 24.91 points combined for one game across where you're starting all 4 maps. Correct me if I'm wrong. At this point, I feel like it's safe to drop Janus. There's enough other tank options on the board that are, even if they don't start all 4 games, are at least going to give you that much. They're going to give you more than 25 points. I think that you can feel decent dropping Janus, and also worst comes to absolute worst. If he does happen to pop off and get back into the rankings, he's not going to be an immediate pickup for people. People are still going to be a little bit wary. So I think you're completely safe to drop Janus.
For me, and I'm going to make this just a broad thing about the entire Washington Justice, no one on that team is startable. Just plain and simple. No one on that team is startable until week 5 of stage 1. So the reason being is the week 5 stage 1 is when a lot of the teams, if you're in a combined league or raw data league, most teams only have 1 match. Washington happens to have 2 matches. And they're playing Paris and the Florida Mayhem. The only other week that they play 2 matches is week 3, and they play the Fusion and the Shock. They're going to get destroyed. So week 2, they play the Spitfire. Then week 3, it's Fusion Shock. Week 4, they play Seoul Dynasty. And then week 5, they play Paris and Florida. They have an atrocious schedule. They aren't good. Like, you cannot start a single person on this entire team. The only reason they got 1 map off of New York was because New York was screwing around. They were just screwing around and toying with the Justice. And New York has been notoriously atrocious on Horizon Lunar Colony. So, like, that's an anomaly. The Justice, just drop anyone that you have on the Justice.
I gotta agree.
Plain and simple. Just drop them. They're not worth having on the roster.
All right, well, let's take a look at maybe the opposite end of the spectrum when we are looking at ranking some of the main tanks, because there is a main tank out there that we had a lot of hype behind going into the season start. And this one is from the Hanzhou Spark and Guxue. So Guxue coming off of a really solid performance in the Overwatch World Cup on Team China. And, they did come in and they had 2 games in week 1, and combined, Guxue walked away with a combined total of 74.91. Now, he was not the main starter for this team, as they did have no Smite as a starting main tank, and that was mostly due to the Reinhardt play. Spark seemed to favor the Reinhardt iteration of the 3-3, but a lot of people are feeling good about Guxue's aggression on the Winston and what that's going to mean for high eliminations and just overall damage with the amount of cleave that he is getting in regards to the dives. Now, Guxue, he's handcuffed right now. Do you guys expect that to happen? And if so, is he still someone that you need to be keeping as a 3rd or 4th option for your team?
All right. As much as I love Guxue, I hate the idea of handcuffs. Like, we saw, it's like No Smite actually played phenomenal on Reinhardt. He played great. He is not in any trouble of losing the starting main tank spot. The only reason they bring in Guxue is for Winston maps. And in this meta right now, Winston is useful, but not prevalent on any map. That's why he only scored like 50 or 75 points last week in the 2 matches, like total between both games. So it's like he does well when he's in there, but he doesn't play enough to keep him on your team, especially in this meta. And I honestly don't even know if having no smite on your team is worth it. Like I just don't think the tank line, they're splitting just enough between the two of them that both of them are kind of below where you want your tank to be fantasy wise. And that's unfortunate, but it works great for the team, like in actual winning, but from a fantasy perspective, it sucks. Because you have these 2 really good tanks, like No Smite, like Totem. You've talked about this. No Smite was probably the best tank not to get signed to best Reinhardt tank not to get signed to OWL Season 1. You know, and then you have Gushue, who is a phenomenal Winston, like coming in, and you have both of them, and they're both getting play. It's like the double-headed, running back situation in football. Like they split carries. Well, which one do you start? Well, in most cases, you don't start either. You just enjoy watching them, but like you can't actually start. So I think Gushue is probably droppable in most leagues for that simple fact that you can't trust him. Now, if you have a deep league, yes. Like if you have a 10-person league and you have the room, and your starting 7 is doing phenomenal, store him because you don't know what the meta is going to be for stage 2. But you if you don't have the luxury of that, don't do with it. So
I agree with Ed. I think that I know. I am as shocked as you are. I agree with Ed to a point. I should actually change that. Even looking at, I think we do have to wonder with the Spark whether or not they will decide, at least for this meta, to move to just a all Reinhardt, all No Smite. Because looking at No Smite's stats for this week, I mean, he had a combined 146.05, and then for single performance, we had where it was just here. I can't find it. Never mind. So I mean, combined, his stats weren't great. Even then, it seems like out of that tank line, Rhea's probably the better pick anyway. If you're in a deep league, I would say you can probably sit on him and store him for a little bit, just to see whether or not the meta evolves. He's somebody I would like to hold on to, but if you really need somebody else off of waivers, then I would say he's droppable. If you really need to pick somebody else up that you have a full other bench of people you don't want to let go of, Gushue is probably okay to drop.
Yeah, and the thing too about going to No Smite really quick, because he is seeing more play, is he plays a very reactive style of Reinhardt. He isn't necessarily always one of the press W and hold M1 Reinhardts, so he's not known for that aggression. So whenever he finds an opening, then he'll look to hit his Fire Strikes, land his Earth Shatter, which he landed a ton of his Earth Shatters, and he was also blocking a ton. It's too bad we don't have damage blocked for Fantasy League as of yet. But I definitely agree, like, they seem to both kind of be at the point where neither one of them are really going to be, like, the highest value Fantasy or Watch League-wise, and Rhea is going to be the better option, at least for that team. But let's go ahead and let's talk about one more player. And Julian, I know this is someone that is on one of our teams, and I'm very conflicted on where exactly he's going to fall throughout the entirety of this season. So we have Effect, DPS for the Dallas Fuel, who put up a combined 135.95 points this week. So kind of going in, we were curious. It's like, okay, what effect are we going to get in the Overwatch League? You know, he's had a lot of stuff going on in the off season. He recently came out. He's been trying to be a better teammate. He's not trying to be like that solo carry and, you know, kind of like very emotional all the time for the Dallas Fuel. And, you know, his average throughout the week was moderate, but it quite wasn't to the level of what we were expecting. So at this point, is it reason to be concerned with Effect?
I think that there's reason to be concerned, but then again, there's always reason to be concerned with the Dallas Fuel. I mean, how do you go from looking like absolute bottom of the league for game one and then going on to be world beaters against Seoul? So I think Effect's an interesting case because I think that for as inconsistent as we want to say he is, I mean, AKM's also been kind of inconsistent too. And so is Zachary. So I think that whole DPS lineup is a little bit shaky. I don't know if I would drop him yet, just because we need to see how this develops a little bit. And he's already said he's very committed to working through difficulty and to being a better teammate. And it seems like from most of the reports we're hearing, that's generally the case. I mean, despite what people who want to brigade him on social media would say. So I would say I don't think he's a drop yet. Because the other problem is if you drop him, he will for sure get picked up. They won't start him, but somebody will for sure snap him up as soon as you let go of him. So I don't know if he's a drop yet. I don't think so. I think we at least need to wait a little bit to see where this meta shakes out for Dallas, or even as the meta develops, what other roles he would fit into. Because he's easily in an all hit scan in a traditional 2-2-2 meta. I would say it's reasonably. We're reasonably assuming that he would be their 24/7 DPS player.
Right.
Like, for me, Effect is... I don't think he's droppable, but I would not blame you for dropping him. He is the quintessential dropped every single week player, and he will always get picked up immediately because the potential is there, but the play might not be there. Like, you could drop him this week. He will get picked up immediately. He won't get started. The next week, that person who picked him up is going to look at who's out there, be like, okay, who can I drop for my team? Oh, Effect. I'll drop Effect. Effect will be dropped again. Somebody else will pick him up, and so on and so forth. It's a rinse and repeat. He's one of those people that it's nice to have him on your team as a oh crap button, but you're not actually going to start him. And I don't think you can confidently start him. The only DPS you, at this point, from what we've seen from week one, that you can actually start is Zachary. Because Zachary is the one playing Baguette. Like, AKM and Effect are the ones coming in and out, and AKM played well this week, as we saw. So, like, who knows what happens this next week if Effect is even going to get to play. And even if he does get to play, he's not going to play enough to make him startable in any format. The only way Effect really, truly becomes playable again and startable is if Tracer becomes viable. That is the only way I think he becomes startable again, because AKM has proven that he is at least his equal in a lot of other characters, and they're going to split time on that. And a split time person is someone that is going to cause issues. So I wouldn't drop him quite yet. But if this next week, if he only plays in one out of the 4 maps and AKM's on the others, then yeah, I think the first 2 weeks, if he's only playing a quarter of the time, he's 100% droppable.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about some of the other player performances when we kind of look at the top end of Fantasy Overwatch League. So who are you guys picking for Player of the Week? So, we had a lot of flex supports coming out of the woodwork, and for me, if I was to pick just one person, I would have to go with Izayaki, who was a flex support for the LA Valiant, who posted a 238.9 game. Now, Valiant only played 1 game, but this is exactly what I was expecting. There's been a lot of hype behind Izayaki, and we kind of knew what to expect. There was a lot of talk, and we knew that he was going to be the start-in flex support. And, we saw Kariv move over to DPS. Kariv also looked good. But we are in a Fracker Zenyatta's game right now, and Izayaki is definitely one of the elite Zenyatas in the league. And, he posted some stats that were very respectable and even on pace with some of the most respected Zenyatta players in the league. So for me, this was an easy choice, but there were some other Zenyatta players that definitely put in some very strong performances as well. So who do you guys have for your Player of the Week? And let's go ahead and start with Ramses.
I would like to personally thank Sleepy for delivering me my win over Totem this week. Sleepy came in
next week.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not feeling confident about that. Sleepy came in. He was available on a lot of waivers, and because, of course, Violet for the San Francisco Shock was not able to start because of him serving his suspension. So he came in. Shock played 2 games. Sleepy absolutely crushed. I think he was third for single game rankings with 227.19, and he was third for full rankings with 393.63. So he came in and absolutely dominated. Whether or not that continues into the next couple of weeks is probably doubtful. The Shock invested a lot to get Violet, so we know that at the very, very least they're going to split time, regardless of whether or not Violet just comes and takes that entire position away. So I think, again, thank you, Sleepy. Thank you for your service. I appreciate the heck out of you. It's been fun. I dropped you.
All right, so I actually have 2, one for each of the scoring. So if you're going for best of scoring, I'm going to go with the jersey I just bought. I'm going with Godsby from the Spark. I mean, I knew he was going to be good, but he was really good. Like, he was shockingly good. Like, in individual games, he was 13th, and in full, like, raw scoring, he was 12th. Like, that is not where he was drafted overall. He was not a first-round draft pick. Honestly, he wasn't in the first 7 rounds in most drafts. Like, he was an afterthought, and he really stepped up, and he showed that he actually deserves to be one of the top DPS. This next one's going to hurt.
Yeah, I know who it is. Yay.
No, you don't know who it is.
Okay.
You don't know. All right, first off, I want to hear this. Julian, who do you think I picked?
I want you to celebrate my boy Raucus with his incredible amount of points this week.
Next, Totem, who do you think it is?
Well, if I'm going purely off of combined,
it's Raucus with 394.77 points. Second, full combined.
The most obvious pick would be Shez.
Nope.
But I was secretly hoping that you were going to say Raucus just so Ramses can have some sort of celebration with the Outlaws from week 1.
Give me something, Ed.
Let's go, dudes.
Defran crushed. Jeez.
Defran. I'm sorry. But like from a raw score, Defran did really well. And it was no one knew what to expect from him. And from a combined score, he was top 15. He was the 14th in the league last week, playing as flipping Torbjorn. And he wrecked on Tracer. His Zarya play was out of this world. Like
outside of Graves.
Outside of Graves. But the thing is you can say the same thing. Dante was trash on Graves. Like, he was trash on Graves.
Dante was trash on Graves. I hate to say it.
It seemed like, and he was the number 3, number 4 scorer in the league. For number 4 scorer in the league last week, and his Graves were literally like Ray Charles was throwing them out. Like, I'm surprised he hit anyone with his Graves. So
sorry, my bad.
So Defran is just one of those where like he can be the best player on the team no matter what they run. Whether they run goats, he'll be the best player because he'll be on Zarya, and he's probably a top 5 Zarya at this point from what I saw in week 1. But if you go to, quad DPS, his Tracer can carry a team. Like, he's just one of those players this week that proved to me that he is going to be ridiculous in the Overwatch League. Now, with that said, I still don't believe he's going to complete the entire year because I feel he will get suspended at some point. But those are my 2. So Defran and Godsby. I'm not going Raucus because honestly, I'm not giving credit to any of the Houston Outlaw players. but from a fantasy perspective, because the thing is, they played 2 3-2 matches that went to the brink in every match. They're going to score more than everyone else regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So they overscored what they should have. They really should have. So I'm not giving it to Raucus. I'm not giving it to Dante. Honestly, the best thing about the Houston Outlaws was Muma. From an actual play perspective, Muma was probably the best player. Raucus was basically dog man out there dying every team fight first. Like, it was just ugly. So no, I will never give it to Raucus. How dare you insinuate that?
As somebody who has a bet with Ed concerning Raucus, looking at these stats.
Wait, what's our Raucus bet again?
He's top 10 of all supports.
God, we have too many bets.
You don't have
we
one.
have to write that. No, we have multiple. Don't we have multiple? I don't know.
We'll figure out the other one. Back to our regular schedule program.
What about you, Totem? What about you?
What about me? I already did my pick.
Oh, you did on your picks already.
Yes,
Never mind.
I started this. But yes, I will say like Raucus did do pretty good overall. But Shaz put up the biggest total out of all the flex supports. And you know, I can't say that I'm too surprised by that, just because in a lot of leagues we saw Shaz going like within the first 3 picks, basically. So we kind of know what to expect from him. So I am really curious to see, kind of like moving forward, if the Fragons and Yadas are to keep at the pace that they're already doing, because I don't expect Shaz to be putting up like 230 points every time he's all out on the field. But very solid performance overall. And, you know, we had a few surprises. Like, I know you mentioned Aid earlier. He put up like 207 points in the game. Sleepy across the board played awesome. He put up like 227 single game, and combined it was 393. So
like,
definitely
agilities dropped 214 in one game.
Yeah, which is a pretty damn good total for someone that is more than likely going to be in Brigida jail for a lot of the season, or at least a stage.
And a couple of things that we talked on earlier. You haven't heard us bring up Jonak's name. So Jonak had probably one of the weirdest weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a 206 point game and like a 75 point game. And that's not to say that Jonak had bad week. It's just one was a raffle stomp that really nobody cared about, and one was a real matchup. And can you guess which one was the real matchup? The 206 point game or the 75 point game? This goes back, and it just popped in my head. When we were talking about waiver wire totems, people you want to pick up, and you brought up Axiom. I would highly suggest not picking up Axiom or Fusions. Because the thing is you don't know what's going on, and you don't know what they're going to do now that Color Hex is back. Because they're not going to be bringing out 2 main tanks again every time now that they have their second DPS back. I just wanted to get that out there. I got random thoughts popping into my head as I'm scrolling through all these numbers.
All right, well, let's quickly take a look at a couple of the matches going into next week, because I know a lot of us, including our listeners, are doing Pick'em League. So we ended up picking one from each day, and we'll do a quick overview of what our expectations are. And Ed, you know, you can direct it really to anyone, or if you just want to take all of them, that is fine too. So what are some of the matches that we're looking at in regards to our overview?
All right, so on Thursday, I'm going to take this one by myself because I know you are both going to agree with me. On Thursday, Washington Justice versus the London Spitfire. As bad as the Spitfire looked, they're not going to lose to the Justice.
Mm-hmm.
The Spitfire will win on Thursday. You can book it, bank it, whatever. Spitfire will win on Thursday. The rest of the matches we're going to go through are a little bit more interesting. So on Friday, you have New York Excel versus LA Valiant. This one is going to be a lot closer than I think. Like, this is I'm picking New York to win, but the Valiant, like, and I'm not saying the Valiant look amazing, but I think the New York Excelsior don't look like the dominant season 1 New York Excelsior. Like, they have like cracks in their armor. It almost looks like. So I don't know. I'm picking New York Excel, but I would not be surprised if the Valiant win. So what about you, Ramses? New York versus Valiant, who would you pick?
I have a hard time thinking about it because, I mean, realistically, when we look at the Hangzhou Spark and the Valiant game that happened this weekend, again, another game that went to map 5s. In that game, pretty much everybody who was a very from a fantasy perspective, everybody who was a notable Valiant player, so like Space, Agilities, Kariv, even I think, Izayaki especially, all of Valiant's like big name players all put up really, really good points. So with this NYXL versus Valiant game, I'm not 100% sure how it's going to go. Because I feel like that big point potential is there, but of course, this is Newark Excelsior, and if they want to put down the biggest beatdown they want to, they definitely can. I do think, though, that GOATS is not a comp that they are the best in the world at, Newark Excelsior. They're very good at it, but they are not the best in the world at it. I think that between these two, I think I'm actually going to go, this is going to bite me in the butt, but I'm going to go with the LA Valiant. I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see it.
I don't know about that one, Chief. And I only say that because chances are Kuki is going to be playing main support for the Valiant again, and I expect to see a lot of disruption from Meku on the Sombra again, and so far we have not seen anyone find the answer to him on that role as of yet. I will say they're 3-3. While I wouldn't say it's been the best looking out of the league, it has still been a step ahead of the majority of the teams, so I feel like NYXL are sort of come out on top. They'll probably take this one, I would say 3-1 overall. But I will say we're probably still going to see some strong point totals from Izayaki. I would expect the same for Agilities. And Kariv is probably going to be doing some pretty serviceable stuff as well. But I am totally expecting the Valiant to falter here. And I do see Bob is hopping in our chat. So let me quick bring him into this and we'll get his take. Hopefully he'll be ready as I bring him into the discussion. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
What's going on, guys? I just got done guesting on Around the Payload, and I'm here now. It ran a lot longer than expected, but
okay. So I have a follow-up question, Bob, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
Did you win?
In what league?
No, on Around the Payload.
Oh, no, but I did win because I am forever fourth around the payload, but I was third. Yeah.
Personal victory. Everything is coming out Millhouse.
Mushu Beef from broadcast.gg. So I call that a win in my book.
Sounds
so
good. Well, Bob,
the only one who's got the win.
We're still at that point. But Bob, right now we're
still short one person. I still have yet to compete. So there's still a chance we could go 2 for 5.
Well, we'll try. But anyways, Bob, right now we are doing our pick'ems, and we were talking about the Friday match between New York Excelsior and the LA Valiant. So which way are you leaning in regards to that match this week?
The Excelsior versus the Valiant?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though NYXL isn't very good at GOATs yet, they have played like they won their first 2 games, and like that's scary. So a whole nother week of practice, and the up in the air with like Kuki playing main support over Custa, and yes, in the GOATs meta, Lucio is a main support. If you're running Zen, Lucio is your main. Just like back with the whole dive Lucio Zen meta. Lucio was considered the main support. So I'm gonna have to go with NYXL because you just kind of have to.
Okay. So we'll move on to our next one on Saturday. We're only doing one match today. So on our Saturday matchup, we have the Gladiators versus the Paris Eternal. This is actually supposed to be a surprisingly good match because nobody expected a whole lot from Paris, but they're just really good at running goats. Like really good at running goats. So in this one, I mean, to me, it's a coin flip. I'm going Paris on this one. They're just so good at running goats that I think the LA Gladiators shenanigans is not gonna be effective. The only thing that could stop them is if, you know, Sombra comes out and just screws with the Eternal Goats action altogether. But I see Paris handling this one. We'll go to Totem. What do you think, Totem? Who's going to win in Gladiators versus Eternal?
Well, you know what? I've been hyping up Paris and their 3-3 composition, and I think they're going to take this one. You know, this is probably going to be the best test for them early on in the season because a lot of us still have very high expectations for the LA Gladiators, at least in regards to the LA teams. Now, we did see some very strong performances really across the board from the Gladiators, and while, yes, they did fall short in kind of like the grudge match with Fisher and the Dynasty, they played without Bishu, so that's really going to be like my question mark. Is Bishu going to come back in when they are running a 3-3? And would that mean that Void is coming out? Because I would have to say, like, the synergy between Void and Roar, since they have been playing together on Call of Duty Panther in the past, it did look pretty good. But I feel like at this point, since Paris is just a step above a lot of the teams, or really everyone in the 3-3 meta, I'm still leaning in their favor, but I expect this one to go the distance. This one's going to go to a Map 5.
Yeah, I'm feeling Paris too. I don't see, at this point, I don't think it's a stretch to call them the best GOATS team in the Overwatch League. I think that they easily have the most experience with the comp. So I think that I feel safe saying that Paris is going to win this one.
What about you, Bob? What do you think? Gladiators versus Paris. Who's going to win?
Well, I have to disagree entirely. I do think that Paris is the best GOATS team. Case in effect, their game where they just didn't switch. Okay, so if they got destroyed by Guard on Sombra, map 1. Halftime comes around. They go against Sombra again. Guard comes in. They know exactly what's going to happen. Route 66. They hold them in spawn. Playing GOATS. They're the only team that I could think of that didn't do the counter pick to Sombra, which is picking Sombra. They're the only team that just stuck with straight GOATS and still rocked a really good Sombra. So I'm going to have to say, yes, they are the best GOATS team, and they're the ones that played it the entire time. So I'm going to have to go with Paris.
All right, so that's Paris all around, which actually I did not expect to see. I expected some of us to take the Gladiators. But
I did not expect them to be so good.
Here's
the
thing. In EU, they have been known for tank-heavy composition since all the way back in 2016 when Ninjas in Pajamas basically came out with triple tank, quad tank strategies. And, you know, on the backline for Paris Eternal, they do have Hip, who basically helped the United Kingdom team in the World Cup get so good with their shot call-in on triple tank, triple support. So I'm expecting him to really be, you know, the thing that keeps that team intact and puts them ahead of a lot of the competition right now in this current meta.
Well, and like you see a lot of the new tank talent that came in that really showcased in week 1, like RCK, Fusions, all from across the pond, tanks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's move on to Sunday, and we have what I actually think will be the matchup of the week in the Vancouver Titans versus the San Francisco Shock. So you have the Titans who came out and were dominant last week, dominant against the Shanghai Dragons, not the Houston Dragons.
He's been doing this all night, Bob. He's been doing this all night.
And then you have the San Francisco Shock, who look like the most dominant team in Overwatch League Season 2 in their first matchup against Dallas. And then go ahead and lose to the Gladiators in the next one. And then Dallas beats Seoul. Like, it's just baffling.
It was like a 5-team like swap. Like San Francisco beat Dallas, Dallas beat Seoul, Seoul beat San Francisco. I mean, it like went around in a circle.
So we will find out what San Francisco Shock team we actually get this week. If Sinatra's as good as he was the first week. I'm going to keep betting on Vancouver at this point, because the thing is I'm going to take the team that has been playing together for 3 years to like have that relationship together. They're good. They had a lot of, at least fantasy wise, underperforming players. Like Haskell was underperforming, but it's because they played Shanghai and they just rolled over them. So like I'm going to pick the Titans on this one over the Shock. It's another coin flip one, but I think it's going to be Titans. We'll start with you, Bob. Bob, who do you think is going to win? Is it going to be Titans or the Shock?
Well, I'm going to have to go with... So I rated all of the expansion teams lower because I didn't think about a key point that I think a lot of people didn't think about. And I really realized it there at the Blizzard Arena this entire week. The expansion teams have a whole bunch of game tape and footage that they can watch of the existing teams, whereas I mean the Vancouver Titans is really the only one that has a lot of tape you could really use because they were the full roster. And so, but I still think that these teams are a lot more competitive than I and many others ever thought was possible. And so I'm going to have to go with the Titans because I think the Shock shocked and awed Dallas.
I see what you did there.
But then you saw when they ran into a little bit of adversity, those strong personalities might have tilted. I'm just making a guess, but I think the biggest problem with Shock is that it's the same thing from last year. They're so inconsistent, and the Titans just seem like a tight-knit group, and so I'm gonna have to go with the Titans.
Okay, Julian Ramses, what do you think?
I gotta go Titans as well. I mean, Shock's been playing goats for the past, maybe like conservatively, like 6 months or so. Titans have been playing it for the past entire season of Contenders and since then. Like, I feel this team knows this comp the best, and they're going to be able to flex a little bit more. And like Bob was saying, we have film on the Titans, but I don't know. I think you still have an element of surprise almost just because this is the first time. We're still very freshly seeing them on the Overwatch League stage. So I hate to make it a completely uniform decision, as I can assume what Totem's pick is, but I'm going Titans as well.
Oh, you think I'm just going to pick the Titans, huh?
Yeah.
Wait, what jersey
Remember
are you
the
wearing
Titans.
right now? I can't remember. What jersey is that?
Well, see, like, my camera is stuck not in widescreen, but I am wearing a Titans one. You guys can't really see it on stream, but it is that dark blue. And yes, I really do feel like the Titans are going to win, primarily just because I'm not 100% convinced with Super still at this point. I know they were working in Smurf a little bit. Super was very hit or miss, and when you're going up against a team that's basically been running this for at least a year at this point, it's very hard to bet against the Titans. Now, I know a lot of people were questioning, are Titans going to have, the on-stage jitters, which was a complete BS argument to make. Yes, it's the Overwatch League, but they've been playing in Contenders Korea. They've been in Apex. They've been playing in a LAN environment for quite some time. So that was really not something that was even in the back of my mind. And
but
after...
Hold on, though. But
okay.
Is it the LAN that would have been the problem, or the 170,000 people watching him NA, the 300,000 people watching him in China? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what makes people blink, not the LAN environment, in my opinion.
Well, there have even been small tournaments, though, Bob, that have been LAN that don't have the same capacity where people just aren't able to show up. But yes, I will say like that does play a part, but it's just a matter of how wide you really kind of gauge that. But I will say with the Titans, I absolutely love to see Siemens-Su on the Zarya. And I know it was basically like a steamroll, but I'm just expecting them. I feel like the Shock have been good, but they're still not at a part where like we can put a lot of stock in them. Like we see glimpses of greatness where they are going to be a playoff contender. They could potentially break like top 5, top 6 in the league. But until they shore up that front line, whether it is Smurf or Super, like it's really going to be kind of like the Achilles heel of that team. But I have really enjoyed watching the Shock play. Sinatra has looked amazing. We got to see Architect playing a little bit of Ana, which is really like a shutdown hero when he was playing, because he was landing a ton of Bionades, a ton of sleep darts. But I still am going to lean in the Titans' favor, and I think they're going to take this one 3-1 overall.
Yeah, that was weird. We did see definitely a few different major position changes over this last week, which was neat.
Yeah, no, it was a great first week, and I mean, week 2 will definitely kind of clear a lot of things up. You'll start to see some of these teams to see if they actually are good or not. Like the Hunters, are they actually good, or did they just win because they beat the Charge? Like, are the Vancouver Titans good? Like, because they only played one match against the Shanghai Dragons. Like, this is going to be a lot of answer week here coming up.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch the Hunters Charge, because that's literally the only game that I had to miss because we were so tired that day.
It's probably the most interesting game to watch, but the hardest to judge on, because they just don't run goats. They just run whatever the hell they want.
Right.
Bob and I got dinner during that game, not unfortunately, but we had to catch up later.
Well, I mean, wasn't that the dinner we had together?
Oh yeah, the one we had in person.
Yeah, because I was just like, well, I think we're going, dude. We are tired. We're gonna go eat. And you're like, well, we could skip this too. And I was like, all right, well, we're out front. Let's go to Simsies. It's a good time though.
All right. Well, with that being said, I know we are running a little long. So if anyone in chat has any fantasy Overwatch League questions, please post them, and we will pop them up on screen. If not, though, we will start to wrap things up. So all in all, Bob, I appreciate you hopping in after, around the payload. It's always nice that you are here with us. And I just want to get your thoughts, since you weren't here earlier, on, how some of the matches went in week 1. Were there any matches that really kind of like stood above some of the other ones in your mind?
I mean, honestly, any of the matches on Sunday were worth a watch for sure. I mean, 3 of them went to map 5, and then literally the crowd, we were like, it was like 2 hours over. We were getting down that last match with Dallas where they, went ahead and took it to a 3-1 instead of a 2-2. But the crowd was literally chanting, "No map 5, no map 5." No, and I mean, it was just a long day. But if you want something good to watch, any match on Sunday was spectacular.
All right. Well, it does not look like we have any questions in the chat. So
I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, a host question. Interesting.
So I have a question for you guys. Is it worth it to pick up or to even start Dogman at this point?
Well, if he's not in the API, you can't pick him up.
He is.
Yeah, he's out there. You can pick him up.
I have him on the team.
No, he's not. Because he's not playing every map. right
Well,
now.
As of
He-
now, though.
As of
he-
now.
I mean, he might be worth, if you have room on your bench, he might be worth it to pick up just to see if he solidifies himself as the main role, if you have room to pick him up.
Yeah, here's the thing. When it comes to Dogman versus Kodak, you had Dogman who basically played like a 3-to-1 ratio in regards to play time, but he was also not putting up the same stats per 10 minutes as Kodak. Kodak was putting up more damage per 10. He was putting up more healing for 10. So I feel like right now it's too early to kind of judge where he's at. But if I was going to say should you pick him up, I'd say no.
Something you have to consider, though, they strategically sat Dog next to Fran the entire time. That was a strategic move because I believe he makes Fran more comfortable. So and Fran's going to play. He sold the most jerseys of any player. He is going to play. The Atlanta Reign ownership is going to make sure that he plays. So pick him up if you have room.
Yep. I mean, he's worth a pickup right now. It's just one
Just
of those
not worth a
things.
start.
I wouldn't start him right now. No, I would not. So yeah, like me and Bob, our team, unfortunately, we have Kodak.
I have on another team too. I'm right there with you.
So Kodak is getting benched this week. Like if you have Kodak, you cannot start him. There's a lot of people out there. Like, all right, so I actually have a question for you guys. Who is the most surprising person that you didn't think or that didn't really play that everyone drafted? For me, I'm gonna say I'm taking Custa. Because I'm sorry, Custa owners, if you drafted him, drop him now. Like, plain and simple, he's not going to play. Because he'll only play if there's Mercy available, and you don't want a Mercy in fantasy. So, Custa would be mine. Totem, what about you? Who would be your biggest disappointment, really?
Striker. Striker only put up like 24 points in week 1. And I know, there was a lot of talk of what is the shock situation going to be when it comes to the DPS. We were all really on the Striker train where we thought that he was going to be one of the key components on the DPS line. And we just didn't get to see that at all. So for me, like, he is a very obvious choice and really the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I would say Saya player as well, just because he's somebody who we figure would be like a decent, like, all right, like DPS 2, maybe a team captain if you need someone else. And Saya did nothing. He got 0 points. It got to the point where I didn't watch the Florida game. So I was messaging Matt at high noon to be like, hey, like, I'm just making sure like not all my players got their stats like fulfilled out. I'm pretty sure like, did Saya like really get nothing? He's like, gave me the sheet. I had to search through how to be upset with myself when I'm finding out the Saya player indeed got 0 points. So,
I mean, 0 points, kind of like 0 wins.
I mean, technically the Valiant has 0 wins too, but
Technically, the Houston has 2 losses.
that wasn't the stat in question.
Houston and the Shanghai Dragons are tied. Just throwing that out there.
I'll go with Arc. Arc, you thought was going to play and didn't play 2 different games. And then on the flip side, every draft that I was in, Sinatra did not get drafted. And if he's still available in your, I mean, the waiver wire is over, but if he's still available in the players to pick him up now.
Yeah. The one person I'm going to add that nobody said is Zumba from Soul. Like, everyone thought he'd be starting as the off tank. A lot of people drafted him. If you did draft him, drop him. Michelle is the starter. It's very clear. They didn't bring in Zumba for any matches. He's not going to play. Michelle played really well, so drop him. So that's it. That's the question I had for you guys.
I had a quick note. Sorry. I had a quick note about the disciplinary tracker. So if I'm wrong here, please correct me. So we have Neko from the Toronto Defiant, who was a player who we expected to have a lot of gains once he started actually playing, of course. We thought he was going to be a top 10 support, and he was going to be suspended for the first 3 games.
Yep.
So if by chance if you're playing in a raw scoring league, he still is probably not someone you want to start yet. But if you're playing in a normal scoring league where you only take your best game, he's definitely worth a look. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, they're playing the Valiant for game 2, I think. I know now we're all rushing for our schedules, but
they're playing the Valiant game 2. Atlanta game 1, Valiant 2. So yeah, no, I don't even think he's startable this week.
I don't know. I mean, with how well Aid did, granted it was the Houston Outlaws, I have to agree. I think Neko will put up decent numbers. Maybe support 2, not support 1. But I think if you have to start him and you don't have another choice, he's startable in normal scoring leagues. If you don't have another choice yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys already talked about this earlier, but if Aim God's available in your league, pick him up.
I'm a happy Aim God owner right now, Bob.
Nice.
All right, well, I know we are running long, guys, so let's go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So we are still looking for reviews. I don't think we have anything as of yet, but that's really one of the best ways to help us out. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know, what you'd like to see incorporated in regards to Fantasy Overwatch League information, and we'll do our best to accommodate. Obviously, tonight was a little bit different because we're going to a more sustained format, something that's going to be more weekly, because the first couple of episodes were more kind of free flow, but if you guys want to support the show further, you can do so by supporting us on Patreon, and we have tiers starting at just $1, going all the way up to $10. Every little bit does help. But Bob, we do have our Overwatch podcast directory, really a content creation hub. So why don't you talk a little bit about Overwatch Recall?
Well, Overwatch Recall is a listing of Overwatch League, Path to Pro, anything Overwatch podcasts. It's a listing that helps you find the content that you are wanting to consume. It's a very nice thing Totem does for everybody, and everybody should appreciate it by going to owlnshow.com/OW Recall. Everything you want to know will be there.
All right. And Ed, we have a number of ways to get a hold of us and our podcast network. So why don't you let them know how they can do that?
All right. Well, there's a bunch of ways you can get a hold of us. You can reach us through email at contact@OWLNshow. We do have a website that Bob alluded to earlier at OWLNshow.com. We are on YouTube. So youtube.com/C/Overwatch League Network, where we are releasing our weekly power rankings. Spider from Overwatch League Networks did a Paris map overview, so go check that out there. We are on Discord, discord.me/OWLNshow. We are on Twitch, presently live, twitch.tv/OWLNshow. So we are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly during the work weeks. So Overwatch League Network airs Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific. This show, OWL by the Numbers, airs Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. Heroes Never Die, the show myself and Totem do on Wednesdays, airs at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams may or may not happen Thursdays, Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. It's iffy with the Overwatch League starting if it will actually happen. Spider may do it every once in a while. I doubt Totem will because they'll be too entrenched with watching the Overwatch League. And then, like Totem had alluded to, we do have our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. Boom!
Nailed you got it.
Nailed it.
It only took 1,800 weeks, but you got it.
Yes. So we recently launched our network's Patreon page for those who want to support our Overwatch network even further. Tiers start at just $1 a month. So that is an amazing way to come help us out. We get different stuff, for each tier you do. So that'd be awesome. And then you can contact the hosts, we'll go around the horn. So you can contact me personally on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch. It's EDANAR Overwatch. Totem, where can they get a hold of you?
Well, I am on Twitter at Terminally Drunk CTR, and of course, if I'm live, it's here 3 nights a week doing podcasts at twitch.tv/OWLN show. Ramses, I know you actually got, some new social media, so why don't you go ahead and plug that?
See, I change it to Ramses, and then I keep getting called by my actual name. The whole cast, dude. It feels weird.
Goulian?
My legal name of Goulian.
Yes, your legal name is Goulian.
So my Twitter is at just Ramses_OW. Trying to streamline it, make it more actual Overwatch centered. So yeah, Ramses OW. Hit me up.
I will note that I did put your name as Ramses, and I have been calling you that throughout, but Ed's just trying to disrupt the flow.
That's what I do, really.
Yeah,
Consummate professional, Totem.
And just to help anybody out that doesn't know how to spell Ramses, it's RAMSES_OW. And you could always find me Blazin_Bob on Twitter, BLAZZIN_BOB.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, thank you so much again for hanging out tonight on OWL by the Numbers. Again, this has been episode 4. I am your host, Terminally Drunk, joined by all of my co-hosts in Blazin' Bob, Ramses, and Edanar, and we hope to see you back tomorrow night for our next episode of Heroes Never Die. Guys, have a good night.
See ya.
Good.